Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this on? Yeah, it's on. Good morning and welcome to Unity by the Sea. It's so nice to see all of you today. And how about our pretty weather?
Yeah. Good job, Judy.
Yeah, I tried.
I know you did very well.
Really try. But I have a new weather station.
Ah.
Oh, yeah. Fancy dancy. Really cool.
Okay.
And it even measured some precipitation yesterday. Yeah.
Well, okay, if you must.
Yes, if we absolutely have to. But I'm going, I don't think so. I'm not going to go along with this. So, anyway. Well, welcome, like I was saying, and today it is really nice. We have Rod here playing for us today. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Reverend Charles is here speaking today. Always welcome. And his son Gabe is going to play a musical selection for us today, and that's always a privilege as well. So nice to have you all here today. Very good. And now I'm going to play with matches again. And this time, I'm lighting the Christ candle. And as I like to remind us every week, the entire reason for lighting the Christ candle is it is meant to be a visual reminder to us of the Christ light that is within all of us at all points in time. And anytime you're ever feeling alone or upset or concerned or anything, you can stop, take a breath, and just say, oh, I'm really not alone, because the Christ within is always with me. So that's how come we do that particular one. And now I'm going to ask Charles if he will please do our opening prayer.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Looking out and seeing two or three gathered, I remember Jesus' assurance that that's really where the power was and is. I grew up in a town of 700 people, and I attended a church, and there'd be 15 or 20 on Sunday morning. And that was a great experience for me, and much later led me to the ministry. So this is where I feel at home, and I think it's where Jesus feels at home. I'm very pleased that Rod's here, master musician, and of course to have my son Gabe sing. I guess the distance prize goes to our friends from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, who are traveling, and we're very pleased that you're here. I see good friends. I want to share the opening prayer is written by Thomas Merton, who knows a great deal about the Christ light within. Holy One, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and that you will never leave me to face my perils alone. In you we trust. Amen.
Amen. One of the things I loved about working at Unity Village was being around kids, because not only did they have all these things for adults, they also had summer camps and youth camps and so forth. And you may not be aware of it, but there are a lot of so-called kids songs in our Unity hymnal. And one of my all-time favorites, which we're going to sing right now, is number 179, Magic Penny. And if you look at the words, you'll realize the truth of them, and every time you pick up a penny, I hope you think of this song. So let's look at the words together. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. The tune is light, it's easy, it's jouncy, it's bouncy, and we're going to sing it right now. I'm going to play it through once, and then we're going to sing it twice. Here's how it goes. So the first part and the last part are exactly the same with a little bit of difference in the middle. Let's try it. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. One more time. And make a change, because I like to add this. They'll roll all over the floor, plop. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor, plop. And use the hand gesture. It really helps to make plopping pennies, right? Okay, here we go. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold on tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor. Plop! Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Remember that every time you see a penny.
Good morning. The word for today is divine order. I appreciate the divine order and clarity expressing in every part of my life. There is a satisfaction in feeling that my own ego mind is in control of the events in my life, today and for days to come. However, there is a deeper, richer satisfaction that I experience when I surrender to the loving power that causes everything in the universe to flow and express in order and harmony. In that surrender, I release my own limited efforts to organize my life. There is one power, and I am part of it. I am an essential part of a purpose more vast than my mind can imagine. I know that my day unfolds and an expression of that purpose. I give thanks for divine order in my life. I joyously embrace and rely upon the clarity that expresses in every part of my life. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is, and who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Revelations 1:8.
Thank you, Ross.
My turn.
Yes, your turn. Nellie also has a special announcement to make. So
okay.
do yours and then
Okay.
Nellie has one.
Hi, gang.
Hey,
That's a groovy day, isn't it? Wow, how pretty. I was out watering my flower bed yesterday, which I have to do. I have a deal with God. I'll pick the weeds and harvest the fruit and all that stuff if he'll water it every night. Well, he forgot, so I watered it yesterday, and I guess I'll do that for a few days. No problem, right?
sometimes you have to help God along.
Sometimes you gotta, he's getting old. All right, next week, May 28th, Reverend Lorena Smith will be with us. She'll be here helping us celebrate National Hamburger Day. Her topic is Peace is Every Step. I don't know. Don't know what that has to do with National Hamburger Day, but okay. John Meyer will be along to do the music. John's a real kick. He's a lot of fun. Do you know John? Have you? Yeah, John's a great guy. Now, we have a very special project, fun project, that we need your help with. After looking at a number of possibilities, we've determined that Unity by the Sea should become the proud owner of a golf cart. We'll use it on Sunday mornings to ferry folks between the sanctuary and Fellowship Hall. That's a problem for us. That's one of our bigger problems. We've got a few around here that we'd like to address, but this is one we can address. So we would like to address it. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a solution. Our budget for the project's $3,500. That beats the heck out of the $15,000 estimate I got for the second idea. So we can do this. We can pull this off, be a fun project, and then we can launch our next big project. So we're looking for donations. If you're so inclined, we would love to see you put a little extra donation in the box, mark it for the golf cart project, and distinguish it from your regular donation. And we'll see if we can't get this fundraiser going. This isn't a big number, so I think we can do it. We're still trying, there are other things we're trying to get done around our church. Next week, for sure, now we've got pretty weather, that old rusty guardrail out front is going away. It will be replaced with a new rusty guardrail. No, it will be replaced with a new pretty white guardrail. So that's going away. We're going to start cleaning that up. And like I said, as our board meets next time, we're going to take a really good hard look at some of the major projects we have in mind, because we've got 3 or 4, and figure out how we're going to get started with them. And the thing about any project is we've got to have involvement from our congregation. Without that, we're not going to do anything. And so everybody needs to, all of us, needs to do what we can to contribute of our time and our talents and our treasures. So I encourage you to get involved in a positive fashion and help us out, because we definitely could use the help. Thank you. Oh, Nellie, you had an announcement.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're on, Nellie.
You're all invited to my 90th birthday party, June 17th. It's on a Saturday, between 4 and 8, and no gifts. But if you want to bring something for the food bank. And you will get a little ticket for a drawing on the 4th of July for prizes.
Okay.
Okay, it's at Glen Eden Beach.
Glen Eden Beach Community Center.
Glen Eden Beach Community Hall.
Yes.
Okay. June 17th.
Yes, from 4 until 8. So mark it on your calendars.
And we'll get it in our weekly emails too.
We'll
So
start putting
I'd
it
like to
out.
have it longer, but I have to clean up, I have to be out of there by 10, so I have to clean up everything before I leave.
And I'll bet you'll have a lot of help.
Yeah, I'll have a lot of help.
And she's told me a little bit about what she's planning on serving as far as food is concerned and beverages. It's going to be a nice party. Really, really is.
Food?
Yeah,
I'll be there.
yeah, food, he'll be there. Wine, I'll be there.
Okay. Okay, that's all I got. I'm gone.
Beer, Charles will be there. We got this all figured out. Not a problem here at all.
And a fountain.
Okay, well, now, breaking away from that, we're going to talk about our prayer box. And right off the top, thank you, God, for all of the wonderful things that are coming together, things that we're putting in the prayer box and one thing and another. And you'll find on the back of your pews, prayer requests. So anything that you would like to go into the prayer box, just fill one of these out. You can put it in the brass bowls when they come around. You can bring it up here and put it directly in the box, or even in the drawer over there in our prayer corner by the praying hands there. Now, once a month, these are sent back to Silent Unity, where they spend another 30 days in the Silent Unity Prayer Chapel. So a lot of prayers go into what we put down on these little pieces of paper, and I always like doing this because for me it allows me to release the concern and say it's no longer, I don't have to keep worrying about how to fix it. And then when that idea comes back in, which it automatically does, it's no, I turned that over. I don't have to deal with that one anymore. So that's how that happens to work for me. And now if you will please take your affirmations out of your bulletin. We'll do the affirmation for May and the one for Unity by the Sea. Let's do that one first, please. Unity by the Sea is a vibrant, loving, energetic activity of God. And for ourselves, I am a vibrant, loving, energetic activity of God. And now I believe Rod's up again.
You know, it's interesting how songs come to you. And I love the story about this one by John Denver. He said he got it when he was taking a shower. And I thought it tied right in with Reverend Charles' talk for today. So you speak to me of sadness and the coming of the winter, fear that is within you now that seems to never end, and the dreams that have escaped you, and the hope that you've forgotten. And you tell me that you need me now, and you want to be my friend, and you wonder where we're going, where's the rhyme and where's the reason, and it's you cannot accept that it is here we must begin to seek the wisdom of the children. And the graceful way of flowers in the wind. For the children and the flowers are my sisters and my brothers. Their laughter and their loveliness would clear a cloudy day, like the music of the mountains and the colors of the rainbow. They're a promise of the future and a blessing for today. If the city stars
start to crumble and the towers fall around us. The sun is slowly fading when it's colder than the sea. It is written, from the desert to the mountains they shall lead us. By the hand and by the heart they will comfort you and me. In their innocence and trusting, they will teach us to be free. For the children and the flowers are my sisters and my brothers. Their laughter and their loveliness would clear a cloudy day. And the song that I'm singing is a prayer to non-believers. Come and stand beside us. We can find a better way.
Rod, thank you.
You're welcome.
As I was listening to you singing, I was reminded of a story about a Hasidic master, all of whom are great scholars, and he had a following of students. And the students noticed that one day he was reading a particular passage, a particular page of the prophet Isaiah. And the next day they noticed that he was still on the same page, and they knew he was thorough. And the next day he's on the same page, and they began to be disturbed that this great master was just staying with a few sentences. And so they finally asked him, and he said, "When I'm already full, why should I go any farther?" And opening songs can do that. So thank you. I think we're full. After a feast, I'm trying to tie this in, after a feast, it's good to have a little walk, so you can see what I add after your song as a walk. A number of years ago, I was invited to a dinner to meet with Arun Gandhi, the grandson of the great Mahatma Gandhi. He was in Oregon on a speaking tour sharing some of the teachings of his grandfather. We met in a private dining room in a restaurant in Forest Grove. There were about 8 of us at the table. Arun had asked that some local people who were invited in peace projects be invited so that he could meet us. And I was included because of work with Peace Village and felt very honored and fortunate to be at that table. Arun, and some of you may have heard him or met him, Arun is in his 70s and white-haired, dark-skinned, and he has a very powerful presence. He was very gracious and warm with us, but there was a sense of authority about him that can come with a deep sense of mission. He thanked each of us for coming. He asked about our families, about our peace work, and we shared with him. The meal was unhurried, went long after dessert. I'm remembering that Arun and I decided to share a dish of bread pudding, and then I joked with him to get more than my half. I reminded him that I have a rum sauce, which might not be okay for a Hindu. At one point in the conversation, apt, I guess, for peacemakers, we began talking about how difficult it is to raise children in a culture where there's so much violence, so much systemic violence, but also so much violence just in the entertainment that our children are exposed to. The list goes on, but I think primarily violent movies and participatory video games. One of the mothers at the table said that her son, who'd never been allowed a military toy of any kind, over dinner one evening took a piece of white bread and he chewed around the edges and he made the shape of a pistol and then he held it up defiantly to the family. I said that our family was so proud that we lived without television while Gabriel was growing up, but that somehow, through some magic, movies and video games flew through the wall of his bedroom and found him. Well, Arun listened to all of this, and then he responded. He said that he had grown up in a Hindu ashram, very small community in South Africa. It was an ashram that his grandfather had started. They followed the principles of ahimsa, nonviolence, and satyagraha, soul force. It was a very remote community, 16 miles from the nearest town. Well, Arun said that one morning his father, Manilal, his father said, "I need to go into town for a meeting, and I want you, Arun, to drive me in." Arun was delighted. He found it, he's a teenager, he's 15, 16 years old. He wanted to get off the farm and have some action. So he was the driver. And on the way in, his dad said, "Now, while I'm at the meeting all day, your assignments are to take the car to the garage, have the maintenance done, and then you pick up the groceries for the week," and he gave him a list, "and that's your job." When he dropped him off at the courthouse where the meeting was, the father said, "Be back here at 5 o'clock. Well, Arun noticed that there was a John Wayne movie on in town, forbidden entertainment in his family. And so he dropped the car off and he hurried through the groceries and he made it just in time for the movie. When he stepped out of the movie, he noticed that it was 5:15. So he ran to the garage, hurried over to the courthouse, and there was his dad standing at the curb. And his dad said, "Where have you been?" And Arun said, "They were late repairing the car, and so I had to wait." The father said, "I called them at 5 o'clock, the car was done, and you weren't there." And then he looked his son in the eye and said, "How is it that I raised a son who is a liar?" Then he told his son, "You drive home, I will walk." Arun explained that in his culture and family, and this has been for generations, the practice was that when the child failed, had a misdeed, it was the parents who did the penance. So if a child failed in some way, Arun or one of his siblings, the mother would cook the food, the mother and father would serve the children at the table, but they would fast, and sometimes fast for several days. So Arun said, "My father started to walk home, and for a while he trailed him in the car. But night came, and after a while, Arun said he couldn't stand the sight of his dad walking anymore, so he, went around him and went ahead and drove on home." Well, after that story, there was a little bit of quiet at our table because this was, I think for most of us, a very new idea that the parents take responsibility for the failures of the child and do the penance. And so that's the story that followed me home after that dinner. And I still don't know quite what to make of it. Certainly there is a vast difference between the isolated world of a Hindu ashram in the remote country side of South Africa in the 1940s and what happens to most of our children in the fray of our modern world. when they go to school, they are exposed to children and families who may have very different values and perspectives than their own family. And of course, they're assaulted continually with internet and television and other kinds of entertainments and phone messages and so on. So we have today we have very little control over the messages that bombard our children. So for me to serve Gabriel or any child and fast for their misdeed, I think would feel to him and most of our children like a kind of emotional blackmail. Certainly would feel that way to me. But still, Arun's story bothered me, and I wanted to understand it a little bit better. So I decided to try to imagine Manilo's thoughts while he's walking home and his son's following him in the car. And the first thing that came to me, which would probably come to me if I were making that walk, is I wish I had more and more comfortable shoes, and that I hadn't missed dinner and had more strength. And I think I would be pretty irritated by the sound of the car back there and my son's eyes on me. But I'm also imagining that after a mile or two, those irritations go away, and Manilal gets to the purpose of the walk, which is to get clear on the misdeed. Why did my son lie to me? He lied because he went to a John Wayne movie, which was forbidden, and he didn't want me to know. So the issue is really story. Which stories do we entertain and enter, and which stories do we avoid or let go of? Manilal thinks about the American Westerns he's seen. Now I'm imagining this, but I assume that this man has seen some American Westerns, and he sees the sameness of those. And I would describe them in much the way you probably would. It's a decent frontier town, lovely people, and then an armed band of men come in and they want to grab what is not theirs, which would be land and maybe some gold or silver mines or simply power. And they're willing to kill for that. And then into the story comes John Wayne or another Lone Ranger who decides to defend, to fight on behalf of the scared citizens. And there's always a gunfight, and always the good pistol's a little faster than the bad pistol. And then John or the Lone Ranger leaves and becomes a local legend. The message, at least the message I hear in these Westerns, is always the same, and it's very clear. The only way to overcome violence is with violence, and evil is something over there, something outside of us. Well, that's as far as I can walk in Manilal's shoes, because I know almost nothing about him, or about his ashram, or about that time in South Africa, and I know almost nothing about the scriptures that he looked to, the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. But I am a parent. I have that empathy. And though my son is grown up, he'll always be my child, and I will always ask myself, if not daily, often, the question, how could I have done better by him, and what can I still do now? So now I imagine making this walk myself for myself. And I imagine a road. Let's have a full moon night, a bright road ahead, a few birds circling a tree. And as I walk, I think of Emerson Stamps, Now, I hadn't thought of Emerson. Sometimes walking generates memories. And I hadn't thought of Emerson for maybe a year when he died last year at age 93. We met in Boston at the home of friends. We were part of a small meditation group there, a Buddhist meditation group. And I remembered that Emerson had grown up in Arkansas, and he was the grandson of a slave. So he had quite a history, and he was a wise man and caring and playful and really as free as anybody I've ever known. And there was a story that he shared with me when we knew one another after meditation that I've remembered. And he said, when I was little, maybe 4 or 5 years old, I followed my brother into the woods. There were woods surrounding all over around our little farm. And my brother, a year or two older than I, and it was a hot summer afternoon, and we went on and on. I don't know how far we walked. Maybe we were looking for a creek to put our feet in. And somehow, my brother and I were separated. And I began to cry, and I called and called for him, and there was no answer. And so I sat down. There was no path. I had no idea what direction home might be. And then I heard a voice. And it was a very low voice. And I looked around, and I saw at the very top of the trees a light, a very bright light, not to be confused with the sun. Emerson. Emerson, follow. Emerson watched the light, and it began slowly to move across the top of the trees, and he followed it, and he came home. Emerson told me that he did not share with his family or his brother anything about the light. He held that as a kind of power and a secret very close to him. But he said, I felt for the rest of my life, including combat during the Second World War, I always felt that I could trust God to lead me home, safely home. Well, I like it when I walk and I get a story. And I'm thinking that before history, before the Sumerians invented writing, humans sat around fires at night and they were told the stories they needed for their clan to survive. And those stories had to be known and they had to be memorized, otherwise a generation and survival would be lost. Well, I love it. Books are wonderful, and I love the libraries full of books. But this means that we don't have to memorize the fireside stories, and we can have entire generations who do not know the stories that they most need to know. Most of those stories start with once upon a time. So once upon a time, a father has 2 sons. The youngest son, I'm imagining him 17 or 18, he asks the father for his inheritance. He wants to get away from the dullness of the farm, and he wants to go to the city where things are exciting. And the father, being a fool, gives him his half of the inheritance. And in the city, predictably, the son rides a fine horse. He lives in a house with drapes and fountains. He has big parties. He serves champagne. He has lots of pretty friends. And quickly the money goes, the pretty friends go, and the only job he is able to find is feeding slop to pigs, and he eats what they eat. Well, I think all of you know the story of the prodigal son. And you know how it ends. At some point, feeding the pigs, he decides that he would rather return home and really beg his father and brother to let him be a servant in their house. And so he goes down the road, but his father sees him coming, and the father runs down the road, embraces the son, puts his own fine cloak over him, and he orders a feast. That's a fireside story to me. It's certainly one in my own way that I lived, and I had the very good luck of a father who did not judge, who was all mercy. The scripture for today, which I'm fitting into the sermon, is one all of you here know. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion shall be with them. They'll all be together. And the last line is, and a little child shall lead them. Well, little or not, it is the child, the grandchild, the godchild, the child we love who leads us. And at first, the idea of doing penance for the misdeeds of our children threw me. But I get it now. When my child is less than honest, or less than noble, or less than perfect, my heart aches, so does my stomach. I may not fast, but wherever I walk, like everyone who loves a child, wherever I walk, like everyone who loves a child, I ask myself, what could I have done better, and what can I still do now? Well, now I'm near the end of my 16-mile walk, and one final story comes to me. It's the one that I happen to be reading now. I'm halfway through. It's on my bedside table. It's a story you may know called Cider House Rules by John Irving. And the setting for that story is the 1930s in a very small backwoods town in Maine called St. Cloud. And there a doctor by the name of Wilbur Larch runs a small and pretty threadbare orphanage. And each night at 10 o'clock, Dr. Larch comes to the boys' room to turn out the lights. That's when there's lights out. And the little boys love him, and they jump into their cots and they pull the covers up. And then they listen for the words, because he says the very same words each night. He says, "Good night, you princes of Maine, you kings of New England." Then he goes over to the girls' side of the building, and he says to them, "Good night, you princesses of Maine, you queens of New England." Those are beautiful words, but when I first heard them, when I first read them, I really thought, that's outlandish and even mocking, because those are boys and those are girls who have no last name, no traceable roots, and they wear hand-me-downs. Everything they own they could put in a grocery bag. But reading the story as it goes each night, he says the same words. I finally get it. They are princes and princesses. They are kings and queens because they are children of God, loved by God, and because they are among the least among us, they are truly God's own. They are royalty. Well, that ends my imaginary walk. I have followed my own child home, and along the way, I've been given what I need for now, what I need for today. And that is story to remind me that whatever woods my child is in, I can trust God. I can trust God to lead my child home safely. And that my job is not judgment, but the mercy of open arms, and that we are all royalty. Each of us precious and unique and very much needed. So whether we call it penance, or just parenting, or simply seeing to those who are too little to see to themselves, it is the little child or the grown-up child who leads us and who makes us. Thank you. And Gabriel's going to give us a song about that road as our meditation.
trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, strangers on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country roads.
Remembering that God has been generous to us, let us in turn also be generous in all things.
Offering lesson please.
If you'll look to the bulletin, we'll say together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
Thank you, Charles. I so appreciated what you had to say. And for me, it always reminds me how one of the gifts that we get from our children and our grandchildren is the gift of imagination. How at any moment, any place, any time, they can make up an entire world in their minds and hearts. And so often we get stuck in what we think is our reality, when all we need to do is ask, what's possible? And so I'm going to sing for you now what I think is possible. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spill traveling
Then God bless these gifts, may they travel, bring comfort and healing. Amen. If you look to your bulletin, let's say together our statement for peace. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury.
Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, the many ways to worship God. For there is only one power and the presence of God, and that God loves each one of us equally. It is therefore the position of unity to urge all nations, their leaders and their people, to turn to God by whatever the name for guidance during these challenging times, and to pursue peace, not war. For this is what honors God of all our faith traditions. Unity stands for peace in our lifetime.
Now, if you look at the back of that sheet, I'll say the leader's part, and together we'll do the congregational. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion and the fatling together. And the little child shall lead them. And they shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord.
I will not be part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason, not my neighbor's child, not my enemy's child, not by bomb, not by bullet, not by looking the other way. I will give you power and his peace.
And if we'll circle up together now, please.
Getting there. I gotta let myself up. Okay. Stay. Stay.
Okay, I invite anyone that would like to fit into the circle and ideas or thoughts or prayers or anything. You may speak, and if you want to, you don't have to, you can have a family. Just know that it's going into a very strong circle of love, and that each shall be done.
Kathy? All refugees.
All children. Yeah, all children. Wisdom of our leaders. Compassion. Okay, Rod, can you read the peace song, please? Sure.
Peace on earth, oh peace that
power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
And downstairs, we have the Pineapple Upside Down cake. So if anybody would like to join us downstairs, please.